I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. My name is Deborah Miller, and at 72 years old, I never imagined I would have to teach my own family such a harsh lesson about respect. For months, I had been preparing for my son Kevin's perfect wedding. My fingers were stiff from arthritis as I sat at my kitchen table, making the final shopping list for the wedding buffet. I had promised to take care of all the food because I wanted to save them money. I calculated it would cost me around $3,000 for the ingredients, but I was going to do it with love. I had also volunteered to decorate the reception hall, make the centerpieces, and coordinate with the vendors. It was my gift to them, my way of showing how much I loved my son and how happy I was that he had found love again. Kevin had been a widower for 7 years before he met Laura. Watching him smile again filled my heart with joy. After losing Gregory, my husband of 30 years to cancer, I understood how difficult it was to rebuild a life shattered by grief. Laura Wilson seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law when Kevin introduced her to me 2 years ago. She was always very polite, calling me Mrs. Miller with respect before I insisted she call me Deborah. She brought flowers when she visited and offered to help in the kitchen. "Deborah," she would say with that charming smile, "let me help you with those dishes. Your cooking is amazing. Kevin is so lucky he grew up eating like this." I smiled at the memory while checking my grocery list. 200 dinner rolls, 30 pounds of roast beef, 10 trays of lasagna. This buffet would feed 150 guests, and I was determined to make it perfect. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Elizabeth, Kevin's 12-year-old daughter from his first marriage, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Grandma," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Dad dropped me off. Is it okay if I stay while he runs errands?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm making cookies for the wedding. Want to help?" Elizabeth's eyes lit up. "Yes. And can you show me how to make those cream puff things again? Laura told her friend Jessica that you're making them for the wedding." I nodded, pulling out mixing bowls and ingredients. Elizabeth was the one bright spot that had remained constant through Kevin's grief. After her mother died, she and I had formed a special bond. She spent weekends with me while Kevin worked through his pain. As we mixed cookie dough, Elizabeth chattered about school and her friends. Then she said something that made me pause. "Laura's friend Jessica asked if I was excited about the wedding," Elizabeth said, carefully measuring vanilla extract. "I said yes, but I was sad you wouldn't be sitting with us." I frowned, adding flour to the bowl. "What do you mean, sweetie? Of course I'll be sitting with family." Elizabeth shrugged. "Jessica said Laura told her that you'd be watching all the kids during the reception. She said it was great because her son Tommy is really active and needs supervision." I kept my expression neutral, but my heart skipped a beat. This was the first I'd heard about watching children at the wedding. "Did Laura say anything else about this?" I asked casually. "Just that you're great with kids and you wouldn't mind." Elizabeth looked up at me. "Will you still get to eat dinner and dance with us?" "Of course," I said automatically, though uncertainty crept in. "I'm sure there's just been a misunderstanding." Elizabeth seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her cookie dough. But as we worked, a knot formed in my stomach. I had offered to help with the wedding in many ways, but being the designated babysitter for the entire reception was not one of them. After finishing the cookies, I sent Elizabeth to watch TV while I cleaned up. My mind raced. Perhaps Laura had misunderstood something I'd said. Maybe Kevin had made an assumption without checking with me. I decided not to jump to conclusions. I would ask Kevin directly when he came to pick up Elizabeth. Later that afternoon, I heard voices on the patio. Through the kitchen window, I could see Kevin on his phone with someone from work, while Laura and her sister Jennifer sat at the table drinking iced tea. I was about to join them when I heard my name mentioned. "Look, Jennifer," Laura said in a voice I'd never heard her use before. I have everything perfectly organized for the kids at the wedding. Kevin's mom is going to watch them during the whole party. I froze, my hand on the door handle. There are about 15 kids from our guests, Laura continued, ranging from babies to teenagers. But she's totally used to it. This way, we adults can enjoy ourselves without any annoying interruptions. Jennifer laughed loudly. That's brilliant, sis. The old lady is going to take care of all those screaming brats while you guys dance, drink, and have fun. Perfect. That way they don't bother us during the ceremony or ruin the reception photos. Exactly, Laura replied, her voice sounding different, colder, more calculating. I already told Kevin that his mom is great with kids and loves watching them. She won't even realize we're using her. She's always willing to help with whatever. My heart pounded in my chest. I stepped back from the door, hidden behind the curtain, and continued listening. And she agreed? Jennifer asked. We didn't even ask her directly. Laura laughed. Kevin just mentioned there would be some kids at the wedding, and she immediately offered to help if needed. Of course, we said yes. She's perfect for the job. She has experience, and she's not going to charge us a thing. I felt like I had been slapped across the face. There I was, my hands covered in flour from baking cookies for their wedding, spending my money, my time, and my energy to make their day perfect, while they were planning to use me as free childcare without even asking. The best part, Laura continued, is that since she'll be busy with the kids all night, she won't be able to eat much of the buffet she's preparing. More food for the important guests. They both laughed as if they had made the funniest joke in the world. 72 years of life, raising a child alone after becoming a widow, watching my granddaughter grow, always putting family first. And this was how they repaid me? As if I were a servant available whenever they needed me. I stood there behind the curtain, feeling anger rise from my feet to my head. But it wasn't just anger. It was a mix of pain, disappointment, and humiliation so profound it hurt my chest. You know what else I like about the plan? Laura continued, completely unaware I was listening to every word. Since the old lady will be running after kids all night, she won't be able to get into our adult conversations. You know how mothers-in-law are, always wanting to give their opinion on everything and telling boring stories about when Kevin was little. Jennifer burst into laughter. Oh my God, yes. My mother-in-law is the same way, always interrupting with her 50-year-old anecdotes that no one cares about. At least yours will be useful for once. Exactly. And the best part is that Kevin thinks his mom is offering out of love. He doesn't realize we planned it this way from the beginning. Men are so naive, Laura said with a malicious chuckle. I heard Kevin's footsteps approaching after he finished his call. What are my beautiful ladies laughing about? He asked with the loving voice he always used with Laura. I was telling Jennifer how organized I am, Laura replied, immediately switching back to her sweet tone. I have everything sorted out so the guests' children won't be a nuisance at the wedding. Your mom is going to watch them. Mom is an angel, Kevin said proudly, always willing to help the family. It's incredible how she still has the energy to run after kids at her age. Yeah, it's very convenient to have a mother-in-law like that, Laura murmured. But Kevin didn't catch the sarcasm in her voice. He truly believed I had volunteered for this role. My own son didn't even question whether someone had actually asked me. I walked away from the window feeling nauseous. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. This woman who had acted like the perfect daughter-in-law for 2 years, who had made me feel loved and respected, who had even called me Mom on special occasions, actually saw me as nothing more than free labor and a nuisance. I went up to my room, my legs trembling. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same one where I had slept next to Gregory for 30 years before cancer took him. I looked at the family photos on my nightstand. Kevin graduating from college, his first communion, our vacations at the beach when he was a boy. I had dedicated my entire life to being the best mother I could be. And now that I thought I was getting a daughter, I discovered I was just a useful tool. Over the next 2 days, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Kevin called to ask about the wedding preparations, I answered normally. Yes, son, everything is perfect. The buffet is going to be delicious. When Laura came to visit and said, Deborah, don't worry too much about the wedding. Try to relax and enjoy yourself. I smiled and nodded. Of course, sweetie. I'm so excited. But inside, a plan was taking shape. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play too. After all, I had lived for 72 years. I had raised a child on my own after being widowed. I had run our family business and survived hardships they couldn't even imagine. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a servant right under my nose. On Wednesday morning, 3 days after I had overheard that conversation, I called my best friend, Patricia Johnson. We had known each other for over 40 years. We had supported each other through the deaths of our husbands, raised our children together, and shared every triumph and tragedy life had thrown our way. Pat, I need to tell you something, and then I need you to help me with a plan, I said without preamble. Oh, Deborah, from the sound of your voice, I already know someone's made you mad. Tell me everything, Patricia replied, intrigued. I told her the whole story from the beginning, the conversation I had overheard, how it made me feel, and how Laura had been acting with me for 2 years. Patricia listened in silence, and when I finished, she sighed deeply. Deborah, that girl is a snake. How dare she talk about you like that after everything you've done for them? You've spent a fortune on that wedding. You've dedicated months to organizing it, and this is how they repay you. I know, Pat, I said, my voice stronger now. But here's the good part. I have a plan, and I need your help. Name it. You know you can count on me for anything. I explained my idea step by step. Patricia got so excited she started clapping on the other end of the phone. Deborah Miller, you are a genius. That spoiled girl is going to get the surprise of her life. Count me in. I've got your back on this. On Thursday, I began to execute the first part of my plan. I called all the vendors I had coordinated with for the buffet. Good morning. This is Deborah Miller. I need to cancel all the orders for Saturday's wedding. Yes, I know it's last minute, but a family emergency has come up. Some tried to charge me a cancellation fee, but I managed to cancel everything by paying only small penalties. Then I called the florist where I had ordered the extra arrangements I was going to gift them. I need to cancel the centerpieces for Saturday, I said firmly. No, I don't need them for another date. I simply won't be needing them anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. Images of Laura and Jennifer laughing about the old lady kept flashing through my mind. I thought about Kevin, about how he had changed since meeting Laura. He used to call me every day, but lately our conversations had become brief and focused mainly on what I could do for them. When had my son started seeing me as an employee rather than his mother? When had I allowed this to happen? I got up and walked to my dresser, where Gregory's picture stood in a silver frame. He had always been my strength, my rock. What would he say if he could see how our son was treating me? Gregory, I whispered to the silent room, I hope I'm doing the right thing, but I need to teach our son a lesson about respect. On Friday night, the day before the wedding, I packed a small suitcase with clothes for 2 days, my medications, my favorite book, and some personal items. Kevin had called earlier to confirm that everything was ready. Mom, how are the preparations? Do you need me to come help you with anything? No, son. Everything is perfect. Tomorrow is going to be a wonderful day, I replied with complete calmness. Mom, you're the best. Laura and I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for our wedding. You don't have to thank me for anything, Kevin. Tomorrow, everything is going to go exactly as you planned. That night, I barely slept, but not from nerves. It was from the excitement of knowing I was finally going to stand up for myself. On Saturday morning, the wedding day, I woke up earlier than ever. It was 5 a.m. and my eyes were wide open with an energy I hadn't felt in years. I took a shower, did my hair, and put on my favorite dress. Not the formal navy blue one I had bought specifically for the wedding, but a coral-colored one that made me feel elegant and confident. It wasn't the dress I had planned to wear to the wedding, but a special one I saved for important occasions. And this was definitely an important day, the day I reclaimed my dignity. Patricia arrived at 7:00 a.m. sharp, just as we had agreed. She had 2 suitcases and a conspiratorial smile that filled me with courage. "Ready for your day of freedom, Deborah?" she asked, hugging me tight. "More than ready, Pat. I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years without even knowing it." We had booked a luxury spa 2 hours outside the city, a beautiful place with a lake view where we could completely relax. The plan included massages, facials, gourmet food, and a room with a jacuzzi. Everything I had saved for the wedding buffet, I was now going to spend on myself for the first time in decades. Before leaving, I wrote a letter that I left on the kitchen table, right where Kevin always sat when he came to visit. "Dear Kevin, by the time you read this letter, I'll be enjoying a well-deserved rest. For months, I prepared everything to make your wedding perfect. But recently, I discovered that you and Laura had other plans for me. Apparently, my role in your special day was to be the free nanny for 15 children during the entire reception, without anyone bothering to ask if I wanted that job. Since the buffet I promised was also part of my unconsulted duties, I decided to cancel everything. I hope you find a quick solution. I'll be back Sunday night. With love, but with dignity. Mom." While Patricia loaded the suitcases into the car, I took one last look around my house. I looked at the kitchen where I had planned to cook all night for the buffet, the dining room where I had been organizing the centerpieces, the living room where I had tried different flower arrangements. All of that had been done with love, but that love had been misinterpreted as obligation. "Deborah, are you sure about this?" Patricia asked when I got in the car. "Because once we start, there's no turning back." I fastened my seatbelt and straightened my shoulders. "Pat, I'm 72 years old. If I don't stand up for myself now, when will I?" "Start the car." The drive to the spa was liberating. As we watched the scenery pass by the window, Patricia and I talked about everything we had lived through together over the years. "Remember when our kids were little and we thought the biggest problems were that they didn't want to eat their vegetables?" Patricia laughed. "I miss those simple problems," I replied. "At least back then, when you did something out of love, it was received as love, not as servitude." We arrived at the spa at 10:00 a.m. The place was even more beautiful than in the online photos. Perfectly manicured gardens, a spectacular view of the lake, and a peaceful atmosphere that immediately calmed my nerves. The receptionist greeted us with mimosas. "Welcome, ladies. Your rooms are ready, and your treatments will begin in 1 hour. Is this a special occasion?" "Yes," I replied with a genuine smile. "I'm celebrating my independence." As I settled into my beautiful room with a lake view, I started to imagine what was happening back in the city. The wedding was scheduled to start at 4:00 p.m., but buffet preparations usually began very early. Kevin would probably be calling me from 9:00 a.m. to ask if I needed help loading the food. At 11:30 a.m., just as I was entering my first massage treatment, my phone started to ring. It was Kevin. I let it ring. 5 minutes later, it rang again. And again. I turned it off. "Mrs. Miller, is everything okay?" the masseuse asked, seeing my smile. "Perfectly fine, dear. Please continue." For the next 3 hours, I dedicated myself completely to enjoying the spa. The hot stone massage relaxed muscles I didn't even know were tense. The facial left my skin glowing. Patricia and I had lunch at the spa restaurant. Delicious food that I didn't have to cook myself, served by people who treated me with respect and kindness. You know what I like most about all this? I said to Patricia as we sipped white wine on the terrace overlooking the lake. What's that? That for the first time in 2 years, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, when I want to do it, without having to ask anyone if it's okay or if they need me to do something else first. Patricia raised her glass. I'll drink to that, and to the look on Laura's face right now. At 3:00 p.m., when the wedding ceremony would be starting, I decided to turn my phone back on. I had 17 missed calls from Kevin, 8 text messages, and surprisingly, 3 calls from Laura. Kevin had never called me so many times in a row in his entire life, not even when Gregory was in the hospital. The text messages grew increasingly desperate. Mom, where are you? We've been calling you all morning. Mom, I found your letter. Please call me urgently. Mom, the wedding starts in an hour. Please answer. Mom, where's the food? The guests are already arriving. Mom, please, can we talk about this after the wedding? We need to solve the buffet situation now. Mom, Laura is crying. Please help us. The last message had arrived just 15 minutes ago. Mom, I know you're mad, but there are 15 children here, and we don't know what to do with them. Their parents are asking who's going to watch them. Please call me back. I took a deep breath and dialed Kevin's number. He answered on the first ring. Mom, where are you? He yelled with a desperation I had never heard from him before. Hi, son. I'm at a beautiful spa with Patricia enjoying a chocolate massage. How's your wedding going? Mom, this can't be happening. The guests are already here and there's no food. The caterers are asking where the buffet is. Laura won't stop crying. Oh, son, didn't you read my letter? I explained everything in there. I canceled the buffet when I found out that my real job was to be a babysitter, not a guest. But Mom, the wedding has already started. We can't cancel now. Kevin, you're a 45-year-old man with a good job and a fiancé who's apparently very good at organizing. I'm sure you'll find a solution. Is there a fast food restaurant nearby? Mom, you can't be serious. Son, I've never been more serious in my life. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa day. Oh, and don't expect me home early tomorrow. We're going to have breakfast here, too. Wait, Mom. Laura wants to talk to you. I heard noises, crying in the background, and desperate voices. Then Laura's voice came on, no longer with her usual sweet tone. Deborah, you can't do this to us. You promised the buffet. There are 150 people here. Laura, my dear, I replied in the calmest voice I could muster. I promised the buffet when I thought I was a special guest at your wedding. But when I found out I was actually just the free domestic worker, I changed my mind. As the saying goes, labor is paid. And I never charged for my services. But the kids! There are 15 kids here, and their parents expect someone to watch them. Yes, I imagine that must be very difficult. Don't you have a sister who can help you? What was her name? Jennifer? I heard she thinks I'm very good with kids. The silence on the other end of the phone was delicious. It lasted for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. I could hear the chaos in the background, children crying, adults talking loudly, and what sounded like someone desperately moving tables and chairs. How do you know about Jennifer? Laura stammered. And for the first time in 2 years, her voice sounded broken, without that fake confidence she always displayed. Oh, sweetie, you learn a lot of things when you're 72 years old. One of those things is that walls have ears, especially when people talk so loudly on my patio. Deborah, please, can we talk about this later? Right now I need you to— You don't need anything from me, Laura, I cut her off. Based on what I heard, what you need is a professional nanny. I suggest you look in the yellow pages. I think they charge around $20 an hour per child. Let's see, 15 kids for 6 hours is $1,800, cheap compared to the $3,000 I spent on your buffet. I heard Laura yelling at someone in the background. Kevin, your mom has gone crazy. She says she knows everything we talked about. Then I heard Kevin's voice again, but now it sounded different, deeper, like when he was a boy and knew he had done something wrong. Mom, did you hear us when we were talking on the patio? I heard a lot of interesting things, son. For example, that I'm an old lady who's useful for keeping busy so I don't interrupt important adult conversations. I also heard that I'm apparently so used to watching children that I wouldn't even realize you're using me. And my favorite, that I'm like having a free professional nanny for the whole night. The silence was even longer this time. Patricia, who had been listening to the whole conversation from her chair on the terrace, gave me a thumbs up. Mom, Kevin began in a subdued voice. Kevin, you're 45 years old. You're a successful, intelligent man. Did it seriously never occur to you to ask me if I wanted to spend your whole wedding running after 15 kids instead of enjoying my only son's celebration? We thought you liked to watch kids. I like to watch my granddaughter once in a while, Kevin. I don't like being the official wedding nanny without anyone consulting me. And I definitely don't like hearing that my future daughter-in-law thinks I'm a nuisance that needs to be kept busy so I don't get in the way. Laura didn't say that. Kevin, I'm 72. I don't have Alzheimer's. I heard every word. I heard when your fiancé told her sister that she was smart for getting a free nanny. I heard when they laughed about how I wouldn't be able to eat much of the buffet because I would be busy. I heard when Jennifer said that at least I would be useful for once. This time the silence was interrupted by a child's screams in the background and a woman's voice saying, Where's the woman who was supposed to watch the kids? My son ran away and he's running all over the garden. There's your answer, son. The show has begun. Mom, please come. We'll pay you. We'll give you $500 to watch the kids. I laughed so hard that Patricia was startled. $500, Kevin. 5 minutes ago it was a family favor I was supposed to do out of love. And now that you've realized I'm not as dumb as you thought, you want to pay me $500 to ruin my coral dress running after kids I don't even know? Laura yelled something in the background. 1,000, Kevin shouted desperately. Kevin, there's not enough money in the world for me to go to that wedding now, but I'm going to give you some free advice. Next time you plan on using someone as an employee, ask them first. It's polite. $2,000, Kevin yelled, and now he sounded completely desperate. Kevin, my son, listen to me carefully. If you had $2,000 to pay me to be a nanny, you also had money to hire a caterer instead of making me spend my retirement on your wedding buffet. But it turns out it was more convenient for Mom to pay for everything and also work for free, wasn't it? Patricia poured me more wine and whispered, You are brilliant, my friend. Mom, Kevin's voice was now breaking. Please don't do this to me. It's my wedding. Kevin, I'm not doing anything to you. You did something to me. You and your fiancé decided I was your personal employee without consulting me. I'm just deciding that I don't accept that job. But we can't get a caterer at this hour. The guests are going to be hungry. You know what, son? That's called planning. When you organize a wedding, you're supposed to make sure you have food and a babysitter. You assumed you had both for free, but you were wrong. Deborah, you come back to the venue right now, or we're never going to forgive you, Laura yelled, and now her true personality was fully showing. There it is, I said to Patricia as I covered the phone. There's the real Laura. I uncovered the phone and replied in the calmest voice in the world. Laura, my dear, there's nothing to forgive. You planned to use me. I decided not to let myself be used. It's as simple as that. And frankly, after hearing your true tone of voice, I'm very glad I'm not there. You're a selfish old lady. You ruined my wedding. Laura screamed. No, sweetie. You ruined your wedding when you decided that saving money was more important than treating your mother-in-law with respect. I just decided not to be an accomplice to my own humiliation. Kevin took the phone again. Mom, the kids are running all over the place. One got into the kitchen and knocked over the entire cake. Another one hid under the main table. The parents are furious. Kevin, and where's that smart Jennifer? Can't she help her sister with the kids? Jennifer says she didn't know she had to watch kids, that it was your job. How convenient. The same Jennifer who was laughing that the old lady was going to watch all the screaming brats now says she can't help. Mom, please. Kevin, I'm going to hang up now because my chocolate massage is waiting. But before I do, let me tell you something. I hope this experience teaches you that your mom is not your personal employee. I'm a 72-year-old woman who deserves respect, not a servant you can use when it's convenient for you. Wait, Mom, are you really not coming? I'm really not coming. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa day. And tomorrow we'll see. First, I want you to reflect on what happened here, and I want your wife to reflect on what it means to have a family. But Mom, Kevin, I have to go. My masseuse is waiting for me, and unlike you guys, she's treating me with respect because I'm paying her for her services. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. Patricia was clapping. Deborah, that was masterful. How do you feel? I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. I feel free, Pat. For the first time in 2 years, I feel completely free. After hanging up the phone, I sat on the spa terrace, looking at the lake, and feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Patricia watched me with a mix of admiration and concern. Deborah, are you sure you did the right thing? She asked, taking a sip of her wine. I mean, I know you were right, but Kevin is your only son. Pat, precisely because he's my only son, I need to teach him this lesson. If I don't do it now, Laura is going to turn him into someone who treats his own mother like a domestic worker, and I'm not going to allow that. For the next 2 hours, my phone vibrated constantly, but I kept it on silent. Patricia and I enjoyed our spa treatments as if nothing were happening in the outside world. The collagen facial left my skin as soft as a baby's, and the aromatic oil massage relaxed muscles that had been tense for years from the stress of trying to be the perfect mother, grandmother, and future mother-in-law. You know what the funniest thing about all this is? I said to Patricia while we were in the jacuzzi watching the sunset. What? That for 2 years I tried so hard to be the ideal mother-in-law that I lost my own identity. I cooked what Laura liked. I decorated how she thought was pretty. I even changed the way I dressed to fit her image of the perfect grandmother. I always thought that was strange, Patricia admitted. You, who were always so independent, suddenly seemed to be asking for permission for everything. You were right, and the worst part is that the more I tried to please her, the less she respected me. For her, my willingness to help was a weakness, not love. At 8:00 p.m., I decided to check my phone. I had 43 missed calls, 26 text messages, and to my surprise, several messages from unknown numbers. Apparently, some relatives had gotten my number to try to convince me to go back. The messages from Kevin were getting more and more desperate. Mom, we had to order pizza for all the guests. We spent $1,200 on pizza. Mom, the parents of 3 kids already left angry because no one could watch them. Mom, Laura is in the bathroom crying. She says you ruined the most important day of her life. Mom, the photographer is asking if he can take family photos. I told him Grandma couldn't make it. From unknown numbers. Mrs. Miller, I'm Robert Wilson, Laura's father. Please, Mrs. Miller, come help us. My daughter is devastated. Deborah, I'm Jennifer. I know you heard our conversation. Please forgive us. It was just a joke." I laughed while reading Jennifer's message. A joke? Planning to use someone as free labor was a very expensive joke. But the message that caught my attention the most was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Miller, I'm Carol Thompson, the mother of one of the children at your son's wedding. I wanted to tell you that several parents and I are very upset because they told us someone was watching the kids, and it turns out there's no one. Some of us already left. What they did to you is not right. Look at this, Pat." I showed the message to Patricia. Apparently, I'm not the only one who thinks what they did was wrong. Of course not. Any decent person would realize that treating the groom's mother like that is unacceptable. At 9:00 p.m., as we were having dinner in the spa's elegant restaurant, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I did recognize. Donna Barnes, Gregory's sister and my sister-in-law. "Donna, what's going on?" "Deborah, what's happening? Kevin called me crying, saying you didn't go to his wedding." Donna had always been direct and honest with me. I told her the whole story from the beginning, including the conversation I had overheard and how I had felt. "Deborah, you did the right thing," she said without a moment's hesitation. "If my brother were alive, he would have gone to find Kevin himself to teach him a lesson. No one treats his mother like that, especially after everything you've done for that family." "Do you really think I did the right thing, Donna?" "Deborah, I've known Kevin since he was born. He's a good kid, but that woman has him completely manipulated. It was time for someone to open his eyes. And if that someone had to be you, his own mother, then so be it." Donna told me that other relatives had already found out what had happened because Kevin had been calling everyone asking for help. "Most people are on your side, Deborah. Your cousin Rose says Laura always seemed fake to her, and your nephew Charles is furious with Kevin for treating you that way." After talking to Donna, I felt more confident in my decision. I wasn't being a cruel mother. I was being a mother who respects herself and teaches her son to do the same. As I prepared for bed that night in my luxurious spa suite, I thought about Kevin and the mess I had left him to deal with. Part of me felt guilty. After all, it was his wedding day. But a stronger part of me knew this lesson was long overdue. "Gregory," I whispered to the darkened room, imagining my husband was there with me. "I hope you would have been proud of me today. I finally stood up for myself." And somewhere in my heart, I knew he would have been. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below and let me know which city you're watching from. While I enjoyed the peaceful serenity of the spa, a very different scene was unfolding at Kevin and Laura's wedding reception. The elegant banquet hall that had been decorated with white roses and silver accents was now in complete disarray. Tables that should have been laden with my carefully planned buffet stood empty except for hastily ordered pizza boxes stacked in uneven piles. The champagne fountain that Laura had insisted on having looked absurdly out of place next to the paper plates and plastic cups they'd managed to find at the last minute. Children ran freely between tables while harried parents attempted to corral them. One little boy, about 5 years old, had managed to climb onto the dessert table and was finger painting with the frosting from what remained of the wedding cake. 2 teenage girls sat in a corner, rolling their eyes and filming the chaos on their phones, undoubtedly to share on social media later. Elizabeth, my 12-year-old granddaughter, had positioned herself by a table of younger children, trying desperately to keep them entertained with paper napkin origami. Her formal dress already had a juice stain down the front, but she soldiered on, showing maturity beyond her years. "Daddy, can I use your phone to call Grandma again?" she asked when Kevin rushed past. "Not now, Lizzie," he snapped, then immediately looked contrite. "I'm sorry, honey. Grandma's not coming. We'll talk about it later." Kevin was sweating through his tuxedo as he moved from table to table, apologizing to guests. His hair stood on end from running his hands through it repeatedly and his boutonniere hung limply from his lapel. This was not the confident, successful businessman who normally commanded respect in boardrooms. This was a man whose carefully planned day had imploded spectacularly. Laura was no better. Her perfectly coiffed hair had collapsed, and her mascara had left dark tracks down her cheeks. She sat at the bride's table, flanked by her bridesmaids who were awkwardly patting her back and shooting venomous glances around the room as if looking for someone to blame. Jennifer, Laura's sister and maid of honor, was frantically trying to corral 3 toddlers who had discovered the joy of sliding across the polished dance floor in their dress shoes. "I didn't sign up for this," she kept muttering as one little boy escaped her grasp yet again. "I'm wearing Louboutins, for God's sake." Robert Wilson, Laura's father, stood by the bar, downing his 3rd scotch while observing the disaster unfold. When the bartender asked if he wanted another, he shook his head. "My daughter always gets exactly what she wants," he said to no one in particular. "Always has." Maybe this is what she needed. Carol Thompson, who had texted me earlier, was gathering her things and her 7-year-old son. "Kevin," she said, approaching the groom, "I'm sorry, but we're leaving. You told us there would be supervised activities for the kids. Tommy's bored, hungry, and just spilled punch all over himself." "Carol, please," Kevin began. "We're trying to—" "I know it's not your fault," she interrupted, lowering her voice. "My sister-in-law works with Laura at the marketing firm. She told me how your mother spent thousands on this wedding and was then expected to babysit without even being asked. I don't blame her for walking out." Kevin's face flushed with shame. "It's more complicated than that." "Is it?" Carol's gaze was steady. "Your mother is what, 70? And she was going to cook for 150 people and then work all night watching our kids? For free? While you two danced and celebrated? That doesn't sound complicated to me. It sounds entitled." Before Kevin could respond, a crash from across the room drew his attention. One of the children had pulled down a decorative column, sending the flower arrangement atop it crashing to the floor. Laura's wail could be heard above the general din. "This is a nightmare!" Amid the chaos, Elizabeth quietly slipped outside to the garden. Finding a secluded bench, she pulled out her phone and, against her father's wishes, called me. "Grandma?" Her voice was small when I answered. "Are you okay?" My heart squeezed painfully. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Are you all right?" "It's really bad here," she whispered. "Laura keeps crying, and Dad looks like he might cry too. There's pizza everywhere, and some kids broke the cake, and nobody knows what to do." "I'm sorry you're having to see all this, Lizzie." "I'm not mad at you," she said firmly. "I heard Laura's sister talking. She said really mean things about you. She called you the old bag and said you were supposed to keep the brats under control. That's not right. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say." "No, it's not right, honey. When are you coming home? Can I come stay with you tomorrow?" "I'll be back tomorrow evening. And yes, you can always come stay with me. You know that." "I love you, Grandma. I gotta go before Dad sees me on the phone." "I love you too, Lizzie. Be strong." As she hung up, I fought back tears. I hadn't thought about how my actions would affect Elizabeth. She was caught in the middle of this mess, witnessing adult behavior at its worst. But her words also reassured me that I'd done the right thing. Children see more than we give them credit for. Back at the reception, Kevin had finally managed to gather most of the children in one area of the hall, where the DJ was valiantly attempting to lead them in simple dances to keep them occupied. It wasn't the elegant celebration Laura had envisioned, but at least it contained the chaos somewhat. Robert Wilson approached his son-in-law, guiding him to a quiet corner. "This is quite the disaster, isn't it?" Kevin loosened his tie, looking defeated. "Mr. Wilson, I'm so sorry about all this. We never expected—" "Cut the crap, Kevin," Robert said, not unkindly. "Laura told me your mother was going to handle everything. The food, the kids, probably would have cleaned up afterward too, I imagine." That was the plan, yes. And did you ask your mother if that's what she wanted to do on her only son's wedding day? Kevin's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. Robert sipped his water. You know, when my wife, Laura's mother, died, I was lost. Raising two girls alone was the hardest thing I've ever done. But the one thing I failed to teach Laura was that the world doesn't revolve around her. That people aren't tools to be used and discarded when convenient. It wasn't like that, Kevin protested weakly. Wasn't it? Robert raised an eyebrow. Laura gets this entitlement from her mother's side. The Wilsons have always been working people who earn what they get. My daughter seems to have forgotten that. Kevin stared at his father-in-law, surprised by this unexpected ally. What should I do? Well, you've got two problems to fix. One is this wedding, which is frankly beyond saving. The second is your relationship with your mother, which might still be salvageable if you're man enough to admit you were wrong. Robert clapped him on the shoulder. Start with the first. Deal with the second tomorrow when heads are cooler. As Robert walked away, Kevin took a deep breath and returned to the chaos, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't just about missing food or childcare. It was about respect, something he had failed to show his own mother. At 8 o'clock that evening, as Patricia and I finished our gourmet dinner at the spa restaurant, I finally decided to check my phone again. The missed calls and text messages had continued to pile up, but one new message caught my eye. It was from Elizabeth. Grandma, I don't think Dad and Laura are having fun at their wedding. Everyone's mad. Some people left. Dad looks really sad. Is it okay if I come see you tomorrow? I quickly texted back. Of course, sweetheart. We'll have a special grandmother-granddaughter day. Just as I set my phone down, it rang again. Kevin's number. I looked at Patricia, who nodded encouragingly. You should answer. Hear what he has to say now that he's had time to think. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Hello, Kevin. The background noise told me he was still at the reception, but it sounded subdued now, as if many guests had already left. Mom, his voice was rough, exhausted. The wedding's over. It was... He paused. It was a disaster. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I hadn't wanted to ruin his day completely. No, you're not, he said, but there was no anger in his voice. And you shouldn't be. This was our fault, my fault. I just wanted to tell you that I understand why you did what you did. This wasn't what I had expected. You do? Not at first. At first I was furious. But then Mr. Wilson, Robert, talked to me, and Carol Thompson, and several other guests. They all said the same thing, that we were treating you like hired help, not family. I remained silent, letting him continue. Elizabeth told me she heard Laura's sister saying terrible things about you. My own daughter was defending you while I was... He trailed off. While I was failing to do the same. Kevin, no, Mom, please, let me finish. I need to say this. I heard him take a deep breath. I've been letting Laura make decisions about everything, including how we treat you. I didn't even notice how it was happening. But tonight, watching her meltdown when things didn't go perfectly her way, I started to see what everyone else has probably been seeing all along. And what's that? I asked quietly. That she's spoiled. That she expects everyone to cater to her needs without question. And that I've been enabling it. There was genuine pain in his voice. I've been letting her treat my own mother, the woman who raised me alone after Dad died, like she was disposable, and that's unforgivable. I felt tears prick at my eyes. It's not unforgivable, Kevin, but it did hurt, deeply. I know that now, and I'm so sorry, Mom, more sorry than I can say. In the background, I heard a woman's voice calling him sharply. Laura. Kevin, who are you talking to? Is that her? Give me the phone. There was a scuffling sound, and then Laura's voice came through, shrill and accusatory. "How could you do this to me, Deborah? You ruined everything. My perfect day is destroyed because of you. My friends are laughing at me behind my back. My father is disappointed. Kevin's family thinks I'm a failure. All because you were too selfish to help out like you promised." Her words confirmed everything I had overheard on the patio. This was the real Laura, entitled, self-centered, and incapable of taking responsibility. "Laura," I said calmly, "I never promised to watch 15 children during your reception. I never promised to miss my son's wedding celebration to work instead of attending as a guest. Those were assumptions you made without consulting me." "We didn't need to consult you. You're the groom's mother. You're supposed to help. That's what mothers do." "No, Laura. Mothers raise their children with love and values. They don't sign up to be unpaid servants at their children's beck and call. That's what you still don't understand. You're just a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy with someone else." I heard Kevin in the background. "Laura, stop it! Give me the phone!" But she wasn't finished. "If you think this little stunt is going to make Kevin choose you over me, you're wrong. He's my husband now. We are his family. You're just the old lady who raised him. Your job is done." There it was, the ugly truth laid bare. In Laura's mind, I was obsolete, a relic whose only remaining value was in what services I could provide. Kevin finally wrested the phone away. "Mom, I'm so sorry. She's upset and not thinking clearly." "On the contrary," I said softly, "I think she's finally being completely honest, and that's actually progress." "Mom!" "Kevin, it's late and we're both tired. Let's talk tomorrow when emotions aren't so raw. Come to my house in the afternoon. Alone." "Alone? But Laura's my wife now. We're a unit. If you want to fix this, you'll come alone first. We need to talk, mother to son, without interference. After that, if there's anything left to salvage, we can include Laura." There was a long pause, and I could almost hear him wrestling with his new husband identity versus his son identity. "Okay," he finally said. "Tomorrow at 2? 2 is fine. Good night, Kevin." "Good night, Mom. And I really am sorry." After hanging up, I sat in silence for a moment, processing the conversation. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That sounded intense. Are you okay?" "I think so," I said slowly. For the first time, I feel like Kevin might actually see what's been happening. And Laura finally showed her true colors so clearly that even he couldn't miss it. "So your plan worked." "Part of it did, but the hard part comes tomorrow." Patricia nodded. "Setting new boundaries is always harder than breaking the old ones." That night I slept fitfully despite the luxurious bed. My dreams were a confused jumble of wedding disasters, Gregory's disapproving face, and Elizabeth crying. I woke early, feeling less refreshed than I'd hoped, but still determined. After breakfast, Patricia and I enjoyed a final spa treatment before checking out. The drive home was quieter than our journey there, both of us lost in our own thoughts. "Do you want me to stay with you when Kevin comes?" Patricia asked as she dropped me off at my house. "No, this is something I need to do on my own. But thank you for everything, Pat. I couldn't have done this without your support." "That's what friends are for," she said, hugging me tightly. "Call me tonight and tell me everything. And remember, you deserve respect. Don't settle for less, even from your son." After Patricia left, I unpacked and tidied up, then made a cup of tea and sat in my living room, gathering my thoughts. The house felt unusually quiet, as if holding its breath for the coming confrontation. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Taking a deep breath, I went to answer it. Kevin stood on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His wedding suit had been replaced by jeans and a rumpled button-down shirt. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face had the drawn look of someone under immense stress. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice subdued. "Come in, Kevin." I stepped aside to let him enter, noticing how he hesitated at the threshold as if unsure of his welcome. This was new. For all his adult life, Kevin had walked into my home with the confidence of someone who knew they belonged. We sat in the living room, him on the edge of the sofa, me in my armchair. The coffee table between us felt like a demilitarized zone. "How was the rest of the wedding?" I asked, breaking the ice. Kevin gave a humorless laugh. "After you hung up, about half the guests had already left. The other half were only staying out of morbid curiosity or because they were too drunk to drive." He rubbed his face wearily. "We cut the cake, what was left of it, did a quick first dance and called it a night. No one seemed disappointed when we ended early." "I see." "Laura cried all the way to the hotel. Then she got angry. Then she cried again." He sighed heavily. "She wanted to cancel our honeymoon, but I convinced her we needed the time away. She's at the airport now with Jennifer. I'm supposed to join them tomorrow." "You're not going today?" I told her I needed to fix things with you first. She didn't take it well. A week ago, I would have immediately tried to smooth things over, tell him to go to his bride, assure him we could talk later. But not today. Today I stayed silent, letting him lead. "Mom, I need to apologize properly. What we did, was wrong. We took advantage of you. We made assumptions. We treated you like the help," I finished for him. He winced but nodded. "Yes, like someone whose time and feelings didn't matter." It hurt, Kevin, more than I can express. "I know, or at least I'm starting to understand." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've been thinking about it all night, about how things have changed since I met Laura, about how I stopped calling you just to chat, how every conversation became about what you could do for us, how I stopped defending you when Laura made little comments." "You noticed those comments and still said nothing?" This revelation stung freshly. Kevin's face flushed with shame. I told myself she didn't mean it that way, that it was just her sense of humor, that I was being too sensitive. He shook his head. "But deep down I knew. I just didn't want to rock the boat." "You chose peace with her over respect for me." "Yes." The simple admission hung in the air between us. "And I'm so sorry, Mom. You deserved better from your son." I studied him, looking for signs that these words were just another performance. But his remorse seemed genuine. Still, words came easily in moments of crisis. It was actions that revealed true change. "Kevin, I appreciate your apology, but I need you to understand something fundamental. This isn't just about the wedding. This is about 2 years of slowly eroding boundaries. 2 years of being relegated from mother to useful resource. 2 years of watching my son become someone I barely recognize." He flinched but didn't argue. The wedding was just the final straw. Hearing you and Laura talk about me as if I were a convenient service rather than a person with feelings and autonomy. I understand that now. Do you? Because moving forward, things need to change. I won't be taken for granted anymore. I won't be expected to drop everything whenever Laura decides she needs something. I won't be spoken about or to disrespectfully. And I certainly won't be treated as a free babysitter, cook, or housekeeper. Kevin nodded slowly. "That all sounds completely reasonable." "It is reasonable. The fact that it needs to be stated explicitly is the problem." I leaned forward, making sure he met my eyes. "Kevin, I love you. You are my only child, and nothing will ever change that. But love without respect isn't healthy, for either of us." "What about Laura?" he asked quietly. "She said some unforgivable things." Laura and I will need to have our own conversation. But first, she needs to understand that her behavior was wrong. Not just because it led to a ruined wedding, but because it was fundamentally disrespectful. She's very upset right now. I imagine she is, but being upset doesn't excuse cruelty or entitlement. Kevin was silent for a long moment, wrestling with something internally. Finally, he looked up. "Mom, there's something else I need to tell you." Something Laura said after we got back to the hotel last night. I braced myself. "Go on." "She said," he swallowed hard. "She said that maybe it would be better if we moved to Chicago after all. Her company has been offering her a transfer. She said she can't live in the same city as someone who ruined the most important day of her life." Ah, there it was. The ultimate manipulation tactic, threatening to take my son away if I didn't fall back in line. "And what do you think about that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Kevin ran a hand through his hair. "I think it's emotional blackmail. I think she's trying to force me to choose between you and her. And I think," he took a deep breath, "I think I need to make it clear to her that's not a choice I'm willing to make." Relief washed over me. Perhaps my son wasn't as lost as I had feared. "Kevin, if you and Laura decide to move to Chicago because it's the right career move for both of you, I would support that decision, even though I would miss you terribly. But if you move to punish me or to avoid dealing with the real issues in your marriage, that won't solve anything." "I know." He looked exhausted but resolute. I told her I wasn't making any decisions about moving while we were upset, that we need to talk about it rationally after the honeymoon. That was wise. "Elizabeth doesn't want to move," he added quietly. "She told me last night that she wants to stay near you, that you're the only one who really listens to her." My heart squeezed painfully. Elizabeth is a remarkable girl. She sees and understands more than most adults give her credit for. She was pretty upset with me last night. She heard some of what Laura and Jennifer were saying about you at the reception. She told me I should have defended you. His voice cracked slightly. "My 12-year-old daughter had to tell me to stand up for my own mother." Children often have a clearer sense of right and wrong than adults. We've had years to rationalize, to compromise, to choose the path of least resistance. Kevin nodded, wiping at his eyes. "Mom, where do we go from here? How do we fix this?" I reached across the coffee table and took his hand. "One day at a time, with honesty and respect. I'm not going to pretend the hurt didn't happen, but I'm willing to move forward if you are. And Laura? That's more complicated. Laura needs to demonstrate that she understands why her behavior was wrong and that she's genuinely committed to changing how she treats me, not just because it will make her life easier, but because it's the right thing to do. She might not be ready for that yet. Then we'll wait until she is. I'm not going anywhere." Kevin squeezed my hand, looking relieved yet still troubled. "I should go. I need to pack for the honeymoon and—" He hesitated. "And I need to think about everything we've talked about." As I walked him to the door, he turned and hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I forgot what that really means. I love you too, son. Always have, always will." After Kevin left, I sat alone in my quiet house, emotionally drained but cautiously hopeful. The first difficult conversation had gone better than expected. Kevin seemed genuinely remorseful and willing to examine his own role in what had happened. But the real test would come in the days and weeks ahead, when the crisis had passed and old habits tried to reassert themselves. For the next 7 days, while Kevin and Laura were on their honeymoon in the Bahamas, my house was unusually quiet. No calls asking for favors, no drop-in visits with hidden agendas, just silence. At first, I worried that Kevin's remorse had been temporary, washed away by tropical sun and Laura's influence. But on the third day, I received a text message. "Hi, Mom. Just wanted to say I'm thinking about you. The resort is beautiful, but the weather's rainy. Laura's still upset, but we're talking things through. I miss you. Love, Kevin." Short, but meaningful. The first message in years that wasn't asking for something. I replied with a simple, "Thank you for checking in. Enjoy your time together. Love you too." On day 5, I received an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang just after lunch, and I opened it to find Donna Barnes, my sister-in-law, standing on the porch with a bottle of wine and a determined expression. "I thought you might want some company," she said, "and an update on the family gossip." Over glasses of Chardonnay in my backyard, Donna filled me in on what the extended family was saying about the wedding disaster. "Most people are on your side," she confirmed. "Even Gregory's stuffy cousin Walter, who never has an opinion on anything. He said, and I quote, 'Deborah finally showed some backbone. Good for her.'" I laughed despite myself. Walter said that? The man who thinks women should be seen and not heard? The very same. Apparently, his daughter-in-law has been treating him the same way Laura was treating you. Your stand gave him ideas. I wasn't trying to start a revolution. Maybe you should have. Donna sipped her wine thoughtfully. You know, Greg would have handled this differently. How so? He would have taken Kevin fishing, gotten him drunk, and then read him the riot act about respecting his mother. My brother wasn't one for public confrontations, but he knew how to set a man straight. I smiled at the memory of my husband's quiet but effective way of handling difficult situations. Gregory always did have a gift for making people see reason without making them feel small. He would be proud of you, Deb. Standing up for yourself wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I just hope I haven't driven a permanent wedge between Kevin and myself, or made his marriage even more difficult. Donna snorted. If your actions caused problems in their marriage, then their foundation was already cracked. A strong relationship can withstand honest communication and accountability. We talked for hours, reminiscing about Gregory and speculating about what would happen when Kevin and Laura returned. As Donna was leaving, she hugged me tightly. Whatever happens next, you have family in your corner. Don't forget that. The next day, I received another unexpected call from Carol Thompson, the mother who had texted me during the wedding. "Mrs. Miller, this is Carol Thompson. We met briefly at Kevin's engagement party last year." "Yes, Carol. Thank you for your message during the wedding. It meant a lot to know others understood why I had to take a stand." "Actually, that's partly why I'm calling. I wanted to tell you something interesting." She lowered her voice as if sharing a secret. "I've been talking with Robert Wilson, Laura's father. We were both at the bar at the reception, commiserating over the disaster, and, well, we've been seeing each other." "Oh?" This was an unexpected development. "Yes, we've had coffee a few times. He wants me to tell you he'd like to meet with you. He says he owes you an apology for his daughter's behavior and wants to explain some things about Laura that might help you understand where she's coming from." Curiosity piqued. I agreed to meet Robert the following day at a cafe downtown. What could Laura's father possibly have to tell me that would make a difference? The cafe was busy when I arrived, but I spotted Robert Wilson immediately. A tall, distinguished man with silver hair and Laura's blue eyes, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee already waiting. "Mrs. Miller," he said, standing as I approached. "Thank you for meeting me. Please call me Deborah," I said, taking the seat across from him. "Deborah, then. And I'm Robert." He pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. "Vanilla latte with an extra shot. Carol mentioned it was your favorite." I raised an eyebrow. "You and Carol seem to have gotten quite friendly." A slight flush colored his cheeks. "She's a remarkable woman. Straightforward, honest, qualities I've come to appreciate more with age. He cleared his throat. But that's not why I asked to meet you. I wanted to apologize for Laura's behavior and perhaps give you some context that might help make sense of it. I'm listening. Robert took a sip of his coffee, gathering his thoughts. Laura's mother, Marianne, died when Laura was 15 and Jennifer was 21. Breast cancer. It was quick, diagnosed in February, gone by June. The girls had no time to prepare. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. That must have been devastating for all of you. He nodded. It was. Jennifer was in college, already forming her adult identity. But Laura, he sighed. Laura was right in those vulnerable teenage years. She adored her mother. They were incredibly close. Shopping trips, cooking together, watching old movies. Marianne was her world. Losing a parent at that age leaves deep scars, I agreed, thinking of Kevin's struggle after Gregory's death. After Marianne died, Laura changed. She became very controlling about small things, her schedule, her possessions, her space. The therapist said it was because she'd experienced how quickly life could spin out of control, so she was desperate to control whatever she could. I nodded, beginning to see where this was leading. 2 years later, I remarried. Sarah is a good woman, patient, kind. But Laura rejected her completely, called her an imposter, accused her of trying to erase Marianne's memory. Robert's eyes clouded with old pain. Sarah tried everything to connect with Laura, but nothing worked. Eventually, she retreated to a polite distance, and that's where they've remained. And you think this history is connected to how Laura treats me? I know it is. Robert leaned forward earnestly. Laura has never resolved her feelings about losing her mother. She's never allowed herself to bond with another maternal figure because in her mind, that would be betraying Marianne. But she still craves mothering. The care, the support, the unconditional love. So she wants the benefits without the emotional connection, I said slowly, pieces falling into place. Exactly. She wants you to fulfill the maternal role, cooking, helping with the wedding, watching children. But she can't allow herself to truly care about you or treat you as family. In her mind, keeping you at arm's length emotionally while using your practical help lets her satisfy her needs without betraying her mother's memory. That's actually quite sad, I admitted. It is, and it doesn't excuse her behavior, but it might explain it. I considered this new information, thinking back over my interactions with Laura. Her initial politeness and seeming eagerness to help in the kitchen. Her resistance to deeper conversations about family or emotions. The way she kept me busy with tasks rather than including me in meaningful decisions. Has she ever had therapy to address these issues? I asked. Robert grimaced. She started after Marianne died, but she stopped going when the therapist suggested she might be idealizing her memories of her mother. She wasn't ready to hear that. And now? Now she's an adult who's never properly grieved or processed her loss. She's built defense mechanisms that include devaluing other mother figures to protect herself emotionally. I sat back, letting this sink in. Thank you for telling me this, Robert. It doesn't make what happened okay, but it does give me perspective. That's all I hoped for. He hesitated, then added, There's something else you should know about Jennifer's influence. Go on. Jennifer was always jealous of Laura's relationship with Marianne. When Marianne died, Jennifer should have stepped up as the older sister, but instead she fed into Laura's grief in unhealthy ways. She encouraged Laura to reject Sarah. She's the one who started the tradition of them visiting Marianne's grave on Mother's Day instead of spending it with me and Sarah. And you think she's doing the same thing with me? Robert nodded. I heard some of what Jennifer said at the wedding about you. That wasn't new behavior. She's been poisoning the well for years, encouraging Laura to keep mother figures at a distance. It makes Jennifer feel special, like she and Laura are in an exclusive club that no one else can join. This explained so much about the conversation I'd overheard on the patio. Jennifer's enthusiastic support of using me as free labor while keeping me emotionally excluded. I appreciate your candor, Robert. This can't be easy to discuss with a virtual stranger. You're not a stranger, Deborah. You're family now, whether Laura is ready to accept that or not. He smiled sadly. And family should understand each other, even when they disagree. Does Kevin know any of this? Some of it. I tried to explain after the wedding disaster, but he was too shocked and angry to really hear me. I think he's figuring it out for himself now. As our meeting concluded, Robert made an unexpected offer. I'd like to help facilitate a conversation between you and Laura when they return from their honeymoon, if you're willing. I considered this. Having Robert present might actually help. He understood Laura in ways I couldn't, and she might be more receptive with her father there. I'd appreciate that, Robert, but only if Kevin is there too. This affects all of us. Agreed. I'll set it up. He shook my hand warmly. And Deborah? What you did took courage. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Something I wish I'd learned much earlier in life. As I drove home, my mind was swimming with this new information. Laura wasn't just a spoiled, entitled young woman as I'd assumed. She was a wounded person whose behavior, however hurtful, stemmed from unresolved grief and fear of betraying her mother's memory. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it did make me see her with more compassion. And it gave me hope that with understanding and firm boundaries, perhaps we could build a healthier relationship moving forward. The question was, would Laura be willing to try? The day Kevin and Laura were scheduled to return from their honeymoon, I woke with a sense of nervous anticipation. Though Kevin had texted me a few times from the Bahamas, the messages had been brief and non-committal. I had no idea what state of mind he'd be in upon his return, or what Laura had been telling him for the past week. I spent the morning cleaning my already tidy house, a nervous habit I developed after Gregory died. By noon, everything gleamed, and I had nothing left to distract myself. I made a cup of tea and sat in my favorite armchair, mentally preparing for whatever might come next. At precisely 2:00 p.m., my doorbell rang. Taking a deep breath, I went to answer it. Kevin stood alone on my porch, his face tanned from the Caribbean sun, but his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He held a small gift bag in one hand. "Hi, Mom," he said tentatively. "Kevin, welcome back." I stepped aside to let him in, noticing how he scanned the living room as if checking who else might be there. "It's just me," I assured him. "Would you like some coffee?" "That would be great, thanks." As I busied myself in the kitchen, I could hear him pacing the living room, picking up and setting down the framed photos on the mantel. When I returned with 2 mugs, he was holding a picture of himself at 10 years old, standing proudly beside his father with their fishing rods. "I was thinking about Dad a lot this week," he said, carefully returning the photo to its place. Wondering what he would say about all this. "And what did you conclude?" I asked, handing him a mug. Kevin sat heavily on the sofa. "That he would be deeply disappointed in me." I sat across from him, giving him space. "Your father had high standards, but he was also forgiving. Maybe too forgiving. Maybe that's where I learned to let things slide that shouldn't be tolerated." He took a sip of coffee, then set the mug down. "Mom, the honeymoon was difficult." "I imagined it might be." "Laura was angry the whole time. Kept saying we should cut it short and come home, that I was choosing you over her by even considering your side." He ran a hand through his hair. "We had the same argument every day. She'd demand I promise that you would apologize to her. I'd say that wasn't reasonable given what happened. She'd cry and say I didn't love her. round and round. I'm sorry, Kevin. That's not how anyone wants to spend their honeymoon. No. He looked up at me, his expression troubled. But it was revealing. I saw a side of Laura I've been ignoring. The tantrums when she doesn't get her way. The inability to see anyone else's perspective. The constant need to be catered to. He hesitated. The way she talks about you when she thinks I'm not listening. My heart ached for him. This couldn't be easy, recognizing fundamental flaws in the woman he'd just married. Mr. Wilson, Robert called me yesterday, Kevin continued. He said he met with you and explained some things about Laura's background. He did. It helped me understand her behavior, though it doesn't excuse it. Kevin nodded. He told me the same things. About Laura's mother dying, her rejection of her stepmother, Jennifer's influence. He picked up the gift bag he'd brought and held it awkwardly. He also suggested family counseling. And how do you feel about that? I think it's necessary, for all of us. He handed me the gift bag. This is from me, not Laura, just to be clear. Inside was a small, beautifully wrapped box. Opening it, I found a silver bracelet with 3 charms. A book, my love of reading, a mixing bowl, my passion for baking, and a heart with the word Mom engraved on it. It's beautiful, Kevin. Thank you. I saw it in a shop at the resort and immediately thought of you. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking about what kind of man I want to be. What kind of example I want to set for Elizabeth. And I realize that by allowing Laura to disrespect you, I've been teaching Elizabeth that it's okay to devalue older women, that their time, their feelings, their dignity doesn't matter. And is that what you believe? Of course not, but actions speak louder than words, don't they? I've been showing her something very different from what I claim to believe. I nodded, encouraged by his self-awareness. I told Laura that things have to change, he continued, that I won't tolerate her treating you like a servant, that if she wants to be part of this family, she needs to show respect to all its members. And how did she respond? Kevin grimaced. Not well, initially. More tears, more accusations. But by the end of the trip, I think reality was starting to set in. She realized I wasn't going to back down on this. Is she willing to meet with me? Yes, but she has conditions. She wants her father there, and she wants it to be at their house, not here. I considered this. Having Robert there is fine, helpful even, but the location feels like a power play. I know. I tried to explain that, but she insisted. Something about feeling safe in her own space. He looked apologetic. I thought maybe we could compromise. Meet at a neutral location? The park cafe, perhaps? That seems reasonable. I took a sip of my coffee, studying my son. Kevin, what do you want from all this? Not what Laura wants or what I want. What do you want? He seemed surprised by the question, as if no one had asked him that in a long time. I want... He paused, thinking. I want peace, but not at the expense of respect. I want Elizabeth to have a loving relationship with her grandmother. I want my wife and my mother to at least be civil to each other. And I want to be able to look myself in the mirror without feeling ashamed of how I've treated the woman who raised me. Those are all worthy goals, and I want to support them. But Laura will need to show genuine change, not just temporary compliance to keep the peace. I understand that, and I've told her the same. He hesitated, then asked, Will you come to dinner on Friday? Robert will be there. Elizabeth, too. Just a small family gathering to start rebuilding. I thought of declining, of making them work harder for my forgiveness. But what would that accomplish, except to prolong the pain for everyone involved? Yes, I'll come. Thank you for the invitation. Relief washed over Kevin's face. Thank you, Mom. I promise things will be different. Don't promise, Kevin. Show me. Consistency over time is the only real proof of change. He nodded solemnly. I understand. As he was leaving, he turned at the door. One more thing. Elizabeth has been asking to stay with you this weekend. Would that be okay? Of course, you know she's always welcome here. She's been difficult with Laura since the wedding, unusually defiant. I think she needs some time with you to process everything. I wasn't surprised. Children are remarkably perceptive, especially about the treatment of people they love. Send her over Friday after dinner. We'll have the whole weekend together. After Kevin left, I sat for a long time, turning the silver bracelet over in my hands. It was a thoughtful gift, one that showed he'd been paying attention to who I am as a person, not just as his mother. That felt like a small but significant step forward. Friday arrived more quickly than I expected. I spent the day preparing mentally for what would undoubtedly be a tense evening. I chose my outfit carefully, a deep blue dress that was elegant but not flashy, paired with simple pearl earrings Gregory had given me for our 25th anniversary. I wanted to appear dignified and confident, not intimidated or defensive. I arrived at Kevin and Laura's suburban home precisely at 6:30 p.m. The house was a large, modern structure they'd purchased just 6 months ago. Laura's dream home, financed in part by a generous contribution from Robert. I'd helped them move in, of course, cooking meals for the movers and unpacking boxes while Laura directed the placement of furniture. Kevin answered the door immediately, his smile warm but nervous. Mom, come in. Everyone's in the living room. The house smelled of roasting chicken and garlic, a promising sign that an actual meal had been prepared. As I entered the living room, I saw Robert sitting on the sofa, looking distinguished in a navy blazer. Elizabeth sat cross-legged on the floor, playing a game on her phone, but she jumped up when she saw me. Grandma! She hurried over, wrapping her arms around my waist. You came? Of course I did, sweetheart. I hugged her back, noting how tightly she held on, as if afraid I might disappear. Robert stood, extending his hand. Deborah, good to see you again. You too, Robert. Laura was nowhere to be seen, but I could hear movement in the kitchen. Kevin gestured toward the dining room. Can I get you something to drink? Wine? Iced tea? Iced tea would be lovely, thank you. As Kevin went to fetch my drink, Laura finally emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked different than I remembered, less polished, more authentic somehow. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. Her smile was tight but not openly hostile. Deborah, thank you for coming. Thank you for having me, Laura. An awkward silence fell. Elizabeth, sensing the tension, piped up. Laura made dinner herself. No catering or anything. I helped with the salad. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely impressed. Laura had never been one to cook if she could avoid it. It's just a simple meal, Laura said, seeming uncomfortable with the praise. Nothing fancy. Often those are the best kind, I replied. Kevin returned with my tea, and we all moved to the dining room. The table was beautifully set with what I recognized as Laura's wedding china. A peace offering, perhaps. Dinner began with stilted small talk. Safe topics like the weather, Elizabeth's school projects, Robert's golf game. Laura remained mostly silent, responding when spoken to but volunteering little. I could see her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, as if trying to gauge my thoughts. It was Robert who finally addressed the elephant in the room. Well, I think we all know this isn't just a casual family dinner. We're here to begin healing some wounds. Kevin nodded gratefully at his father-in-law. Dad's right. We need to talk about what happened and how we move forward. Laura stiffened but said nothing. "Elizabeth," Robert said gently, "perhaps you'd like to be excused for this part of the conversation." "No way," Elizabeth protested. "I was at the wedding. I heard what people said about Grandma. I should get to be part of fixing it." I looked at my granddaughter with pride. Elizabeth has a point. She's affected by this, too. Kevin and Robert exchanged glances. Then Kevin nodded. "All right, but Lizzie, if we ask you to step out for a bit, I need you to respect that. Some things might be too adult for you to hear." "Fine," she agreed reluctantly. Robert cleared his throat. "Laura, I think you have something you want to say to Deborah." Laura looked like she might argue, but after a pointed look from both her father and husband, she took a deep breath. "Deborah, I want to apologize for what happened at the wedding." The words sounded rehearsed, but not necessarily insincere. I should have asked you directly about watching the children instead of assuming. It was presumptuous and disrespectful." I waited, sensing there was more. "And," Laura continued, less confidently now, "I'm sorry for the things I said about you to my sister. They were unkind and unfair." "Thank you for that apology, Laura. I appreciate it." I kept my tone neutral, neither warm nor cold. "However," she added, a flash of her old defensiveness returning, "I still think your response was extreme. You could have just talked to us instead of ruining the entire wedding." And there it was, the blame shifting I had expected. Before I could respond, Kevin intervened. "Laura, we agreed that you wouldn't qualify your apology. Mom had tried talking to us before. We just didn't listen." "When?" Laura challenged. "When did she ever say she felt taken advantage of?" "Remember Thanksgiving?" Elizabeth piped up unexpectedly. "Grandma said she was tired after cooking all day, and you still made her wash dishes while we watched the football game." Laura's face flushed. "That's not—" "And my birthday," Elizabeth continued, gaining confidence. "Grandma made all the food and cleaned up afterward, and you didn't even say thank you. I heard her tell Dad later that she felt unappreciated, but he just said you were stressed from work." Kevin looked stricken. "Elizabeth, that's enough." "But it's true. You guys treat Grandma like she's the maid, not family." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "It's not fair." The table fell silent. Elizabeth's raw honesty had exposed the patterns none of the adults had been willing to fully acknowledge. Robert placed a gentle hand on his granddaughter's shoulder. "Elizabeth, thank you for your honesty. It's important that we hear these things, even when they're difficult to face." Laura stared at her plate, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and resentment. "Is that how everyone sees me? As some kind of monster who exploits an old woman?" "No one is calling you a monster, Laura," I said quietly. "But there has been a pattern of taking my time and efforts for granted, of assuming I would always be available to help without being properly asked or thanked." "I thank you," Laura protested. "Sometimes, yes, but more often my help is simply expected, as if it's my duty rather than my choice." Kevin reached for Laura's hand. "Honey, Mom isn't attacking you. She's just explaining how she's felt." Laura pulled her hand away. "Everyone's against me, even Elizabeth." "That's not true," Robert said firmly. "We all want this family to work, but that requires honesty and accountability from everyone. Including me," I added. "I should have spoken up sooner instead of letting resentment build. I should have been clearer about my boundaries." Laura looked up, surprised by my admission. "But," I continued, "that doesn't change the fact that the way I was being treated was wrong. And it doesn't excuse the hurtful things you said about me." "I didn't think you'd hear those things," Laura muttered. "Would that make them okay?" Kevin asked gently. Laura's expression crumpled. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion break through her careful facade. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to have a mother-in-law. Robert reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. Laura, remember what we talked about your mother, and how you've struggled with maternal figures since she died? Laura nodded, tears starting to fall. Maybe it's time to tell Deborah about that, to help her understand. Taking a shaky breath, Laura began to share her story about losing her mother at 15, about rejecting her stepmother, about her complicated feelings toward older women who took on maternal roles. It wasn't a perfect explanation, delivered with many pauses and backtracking, but it was honest in a way I had never seen from her before. So when Kevin introduced us, she concluded, looking at me directly for the first time, I didn't know what to do with you. I wanted your approval, but I was afraid of getting close. It seemed safer to keep you busy with tasks than to risk developing a real relationship. Because real relationships can lead to real loss, I said softly, understanding dawning. Yes, she wiped at her tears. It's stupid and childish, I know. It's not stupid, Laura. It's human. We all develop defenses against pain. An uncomfortable silence fell as we all absorbed this new level of honesty. Elizabeth, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during Laura's confession, suddenly asked, Does this mean you're going to be nicer to Grandma now? Leave it to a 12-year-old to cut straight to the heart of the matter. Laura managed a watery smile. I'm going to try, Elizabeth. I really am. And does that mean Grandma is going to come to family things again? And not just to help in the kitchen? Yes, Kevin answered firmly. Grandma is always welcome as a guest, not just as a helper. I looked around this table at these imperfect people trying so hard to rebuild what had been broken. There was still a long way to go, but this felt like an honest beginning. I think, I said carefully, that we all need to practice new patterns of interaction. Old habits don't change overnight. Robert nodded approvingly. That's very wise, Deborah, which is why I've taken the liberty of arranging something. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table to Kevin. This is Dr. Marcia Winters. She specializes in family therapy, particularly issues between different generations. I've scheduled an appointment for all of us next Tuesday, if you're willing. Kevin and I both nodded, but Laura hesitated. All of us, including Elizabeth? For some sessions, yes, Robert confirmed. This affects her, too, as she so eloquently demonstrated tonight. Therapy sounds boring, Elizabeth complained, her earlier passion deflating at the prospect of sitting in an office talking about feelings. Sometimes boring things are necessary, I told her with a smile, like eating vegetables or doing homework. I guess, she conceded, but only if we get ice cream after. The tension broke and everyone chuckled. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. As we moved to dessert, a store-bought cheesecake that Laura apologetically admitted she hadn't had time to make from scratch, the conversation shifted to safer topics. When the evening ended, Laura surprised me by walking me to my car alone. Deborah, she said, awkwardly wringing her hands, I want to say something without the others listening. I'm listening. I'm not good at admitting when I'm wrong. It's hard for me, really hard. She looked down at her feet. But I was wrong about you. The things I said, the way I treated you, it wasn't right. Thank you for saying that, Laura. I can't promise I'll change overnight, but I want to try to be better. For Kevin and Elizabeth. And she hesitated. For myself, too. My mom would be ashamed of how I've been acting. The mention of her mother seemed to cost her, and I recognized the olive branch for what it was. Laura, I don't expect perfection, just effort and honesty. We can build from there, she nodded, relief evident in her posture. Elizabeth is really excited about staying with you this weekend. I'm looking forward to it, too. She talks about you all the time, you know, the things you teach her, the stories you tell her. A note of wistfulness crept into Laura's voice. She loves you very much. The feeling is mutual. Laura hesitated, then added, maybe sometime you could teach me some of your recipes? The ones Kevin always talks about from his childhood? It was a small request, but significant, an acknowledgement that I had knowledge worth sharing, not just labor worth exploiting. I'd like that, Laura, whenever you're ready. As I drove home that night, I felt cautiously optimistic. The dinner had been awkward and emotionally charged, but also more honest than any interaction we'd had in the past 2 years. Real issues had been addressed, real pain acknowledged. It wasn't healing yet, but it was the necessary first step, cleaning the wound before it could begin to mend. The weekend with Elizabeth was exactly what both of us needed. Free from the tension at home, she bloomed back into her usual curious, talkative self. We baked cookies, visited the botanical garden, and stayed up late watching old movies that Gregory and I had loved. On Saturday afternoon, as we kneaded dough for homemade pizza, Elizabeth suddenly asked, "Grandma, why doesn't Laura like you?" I paused, considering how to answer truthfully without disparaging her stepmother. "I think it's complicated, sweetheart. Laura lost her own mother when she was young, and that made it hard for her to know how to have relationships with older women like me." Elizabeth thought about this, her small hands continuing to work the dough. "But that's not your fault." "No, it's not, but understanding where someone's behavior comes from can help us respond with compassion, even when they hurt us. Dad says we're all going to therapy together." "That's right, to help us learn better ways to communicate and understand each other." Elizabeth wrinkled her nose. "Laura cried a lot after you left on Friday. She and Dad argued, but really quietly, like they didn't want me to hear." "I'm sorry about that, Lizzie. Adults sometimes have difficulty sorting out their feelings." "Dad said Laura needs to take ownership of her actions and stop blaming everyone else." She looked up at me. "What does that mean?" "It means accepting responsibility when you've done something wrong, instead of making excuses or blaming others. Like when I blamed Max for breaking the vase, but it was really me who left my skateboard in the hallway." I smiled. "Exactly like that. It takes courage to admit when we're wrong, but it's an important part of growing up." Elizabeth nodded sagely. "I think Laura has a lot of growing up to do." "We all do, sweetheart. In different ways. That's what life is. Continuous growth and learning." She seemed satisfied with this answer and moved on to choosing pizza toppings. But her question lingered in my mind. Did Laura truly dislike me? Or was she simply afraid of what letting me into her life might mean? Tuesday arrived, and with it our first family therapy session. Dr. Winters was a thoughtful woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She began by establishing ground rules. No interrupting, no personal attacks. Speak from your own experience using I statements. For the first session, she met with each of us individually for 15 minutes before bringing us together. When my turn came, she asked a simple but profound question. "What do you hope to gain from these sessions, Deborah?" I considered carefully before answering. "I want my son to see me as a person, not just a role or a resource. I want my granddaughter to witness healthy adult relationships. And I want to understand if there's any possibility of a genuine connection with Laura, or if we're better off maintaining a polite distance." Dr. Winters nodded, making notes. "And what are you willing to contribute to make those goals possible?" "Honesty, patience, forgiveness, if it's earned, and the courage to maintain boundaries, even when it would be easier to let them slide for the sake of peace." Those are excellent foundations, she said approvingly. Now tell me about your relationship with Laura before the wedding incident. When we all gathered together afterward, Dr. Winters guided us through a structured conversation, asking each person to share what they valued about the others and what they found challenging. Kevin went first, his discomfort evident, but his commitment clear. Then Elizabeth, whose straightforward observations often cut straight to the heart of matters. When it was Laura's turn, she fidgeted with her bracelet, eyes downcast. "This is hard for me," she admitted. "I'm not used to talking about feelings like this." "Take your time," Dr. Winters encouraged. Laura took a deep breath. "What I value about Deborah is her reliability. She's always there when needed. She never complains or makes excuses." She paused, realizing how this sounded. "I mean, she's dependable in a way I'm not used to. My mom was dependable like that." Dr. Winters nodded. "And what do you find challenging?" "I feel judged sometimes, like I'm failing some test I didn't know I was taking." Laura twisted her bracelet more vigorously. "And I feel like Kevin compares me to her, to what a wife or mother should be, and I come up short." Kevin looked surprised. "I've never compared you to my mother." "Not directly," Laura said. "But you talk about how she raised you, the meals she cooked, how she handled everything alone after your dad died. It feels like a standard I can't possibly meet." This was an insight I hadn't considered, that Laura might feel intimidated by the role I played in Kevin's life. When my turn came, I spoke carefully. "What I value about Laura is her determination and her honesty when pushed. Even when it's uncomfortable, she'll eventually speak her truth. I respect that." Laura looked up, clearly not having expected any positive assessment. "What I find challenging," I continued, "is feeling that my worth is measured only by what services I can provide, not by who I am as a person. I want to be included in this family for myself, not just for what I can do for you." Dr. Winters guided us through more exercises, helping us identify patterns of interaction that had become problematic. By the end of the session, we had homework. Kevin was to notice when he put his mother or wife in no-win situations by trying to please both. Laura was to practice asking directly for help instead of expecting it. I was to clearly state when I was or wasn't available to help without guilt or justification. And Elizabeth was to tell a grown-up when she felt caught in the middle of adult conflicts. As we left the office, Laura surprised me by asking if we could talk privately before our next session. "Maybe coffee? Just the two of us?" "I'd like that," I said, genuinely pleased by her initiative. 2 days later, we met at a small cafe downtown. Laura arrived first, already seated at a corner table with 2 lattes waiting. She'd made an effort with her appearance. Casual but put together, her hair loose around her shoulders. "I ordered vanilla for you," she said as I sat down. "Kevin said it's your favorite." "Thank you. That was thoughtful." An awkward silence fell as we both sipped our drinks, uncertain where to begin. "I've been seeing my own therapist," Laura finally said, setting down her cup. "Since we got back from the honeymoon. Dad's idea, but Kevin agreed it would help." "That's commendable, Laura. Therapy can be challenging but worthwhile." She nodded. "It's been uncomfortable. Dr. Chen doesn't let me get away with the excuses I usually make." A wry smile briefly crossed her face. "She calls me on my cognitive distortions. That's what she calls them when I twist things to avoid taking responsibility." "And is it helping?" "I think so. It's making me look at things I've been avoiding, like why I treated you the way I did." She met my eyes directly. "It wasn't just about my mom dying, though that's part of it. It was also about feeling inadequate next to you." "Inadequate? Laura, why would you feel that way?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Are you kidding? You're the perfect mother. The perfect grandmother. You cook, you bake, you remember everyone's favorite foods and special days. You raised Kevin alone after his father died, put him through college, supported him through his first wife's death. You're practically a saint in his eyes. I was genuinely surprised by this perspective. I'm far from perfect, Laura. I've made plenty of mistakes. Maybe. But Kevin doesn't see them. All he sees is the mother who sacrificed everything for him. How am I supposed to compete with that? It's not a competition, I said gently. Isn't it? When Kevin talks about his childhood, it's always Mom made the best cookies or Mom never missed a baseball game. When he looks at how I interact with Elizabeth, I can feel him comparing me to you and finding me wanting. I considered her words carefully. Have you shared these feelings with Kevin? Some of them, in therapy, he seemed shocked, said he never meant to make me feel that way. She stirred her latte absently. But intention doesn't change impact, right? That's what Dr. Chen keeps saying. She's right about that. Laura took a deep breath. Dr. Chen suggested something that scared me at first, but I think she might be right. She said that instead of seeing you as competition, I should see you as a resource, someone who could teach me things I want to learn. What kinds of things? How to be more patient with Elizabeth. How to cook those meals Kevin loves so much. She hesitated. How to be part of a family without losing myself. You've managed to stay strong and independent while still being there for your family. I don't know how to do that. The vulnerability in her admission touched me deeply. Laura, I would be happy to share anything I've learned, but you should know I was hardly a perfect mother. I made plenty of mistakes with Kevin. And everything I know, I learned through trial and error, just like you're doing. Really? You weren't born knowing how to make the perfect pot roast? A genuine smile flickered across her face. My first attempt was so tough, Gregory suggested we use it to resole his work boots. She laughed, a real laugh this time, and some of the tension between us eased. Laura, can I ask you something directly? She nodded, the wariness returned to her expression. Do you actually want a relationship with me? Not just because I'm Kevin's mother or Elizabeth's grandmother, but because you see value in connecting with me as a person? Laura considered the question seriously. I don't know yet, she admitted finally. I know that sounds terrible, but it's the truth. I've spent so long keeping you at arm's length that I don't know what a real relationship would even look like. But I think I'd like to find out. Her honesty was refreshing, if a bit painful. Thank you for that truth. I'd rather have genuine uncertainty than false affirmation. That's another thing Dr. Chen pointed out. How much energy I've wasted pretending to feel things I don't, or not feel things I do. Laura shook her head. It's exhausting, always wearing a mask. It certainly is. We talked for almost 2 hours, covering topics we'd never broached before. Laura's childhood before her mother died, my early years with Gregory, our respective career aspirations, books we'd loved. Not all of it was easy or comfortable, but all of it was real in a way our previous interactions had never been. As our coffee date ended, Laura asked hesitantly, would you be willing to show me how to make that chicken casserole Kevin always talks about? The one with the cornflake crust? I'd be delighted to, Laura. How about next Saturday? Elizabeth could join us if she likes. I'd like that. Thank you. She paused, then added, and Deborah? I really am sorry about the wedding, about all of it. I know one apology doesn't fix everything, but I am trying to do better. I believe you are, and that's all anyone can ask. As I drove home, I reflected on our conversation. Laura was still a work in progress. We all were. But the woman I'd spoken with today bore little resemblance to the entitled bride who had planned to use me as free childcare. There was a genuineness to her now, an awareness of her own flaws that made her more approachable, more human. Whether we would ever have the close relationship that some mothers and daughters-in-law enjoyed remained to be seen. But at least now there was possibility where before there had only been pretense. The cooking lesson that Saturday marked a turning point in our family dynamics. Laura arrived at my house with Elizabeth, both carrying grocery bags and wearing casual clothes suitable for kitchen work. Laura had pulled her hair back in a simple ponytail, her usual perfect makeup replaced by a fresh-faced look that made her appear younger and more approachable. "I brought extra cornflakes," she announced, holding up a box. "Kevin said they're the secret ingredient." "One of many," I confirmed with a smile. "Come in, both of you. Let's get started." For the next 3 hours, we worked together in my kitchen, measuring, mixing, sharing stories. I demonstrated techniques my mother had taught me, explaining the reasoning behind each step. Laura proved to be an attentive student, asking thoughtful questions and taking notes in a small spiral notebook she'd brought. Elizabeth moved between helping us and setting the table, clearly delighted by the unusual harmony between her grandmother and stepmother. At one point, she took a photo of us working side by side at the counter, Laura concentrating intensely as I showed her how to layer the ingredients. "This is going on my Instagram," she declared. "Dad won't believe it." Laura laughed. "Send it to him directly. He's probably sitting at home wondering if we've killed each other yet." The easy joke surprised me, revealing a self-awareness I hadn't seen in Laura before. Perhaps therapy was helping more than I'd realized. When Kevin arrived to pick them up, the casserole was just coming out of the oven, golden and bubbling. His expression as he entered the kitchen was comical, a mixture of disbelief, hope, and cautious joy. "Something smells amazing," he said, looking from Laura to me and back again. "Your mother is a patient teacher," Laura replied, removing her apron. "Though I definitely need more practice. My cornflake layer isn't nearly as even as hers." "Practice makes perfect," I assured her. "Next time we'll try the meatloaf." "Next time?" Kevin echoed, his smile growing. "So this wasn't a one-time experiment?" Laura glanced at me, a question in her eyes. I nodded encouragingly. "Actually," she said, turning back to Kevin, "Deborah and I thought maybe we could make this a regular thing. Saturday cooking lessons, if that's okay with you." "Okay. It's better than okay." He pulled her into a quick hug, then surprised me by embracing me as well. This is great." We sent them home with the casserole, Laura carrying it carefully as if it were made of gold rather than chicken and cornflakes. As they drove away, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the heat from my oven. It was just one afternoon, just one dish, but it represented so much more. A willingness to try, to learn, to connect. Over the next several weeks, our cooking lessons continued, sometimes with Elizabeth joining us, sometimes just Laura and me. We expanded beyond Kevin's childhood favorites to dishes Laura wanted to learn. Her mother's lost recipes that she remembered but had never learned to make, holiday specialties, simple weeknight meals. Family therapy continued as well, providing a structured space to address deeper issues. Dr. Winters was skilled at identifying patterns none of us had recognized. How Kevin tended to triangulate between Laura and me instead of encouraging direct communication. How Laura used criticism as a defense mechanism when feeling vulnerable. How I sometimes enabled dependency by stepping in too quickly when help was needed. One particularly insightful session focused on the role of Laura's sister, Jennifer, in maintaining unhealthy family dynamics. "Jennifer still calls me every day," Laura admitted reluctantly. "She always wants to know if I've given in to Deborah yet. She makes it sound like we're in some kind of war." "And how do you respond to that framing?" Dr. Winters asked. Laura flushed. "I used to agree with her. Now I try to change the subject, but she's persistent." Might it be helpful to set clearer boundaries with Jennifer about discussing Deborah? Probably, Laura acknowledged. But she's my sister. We've always told each other everything. Sometimes growth requires renegotiating even our closest relationships, Dr. Winters observed, especially when old patterns no longer serve us. The following week, Laura made a significant announcement during our therapy session. I told Jennifer to stop bad-mouthing Deborah. I said if she couldn't be respectful, we couldn't discuss my mother-in-law anymore. How did she respond? Dr. Winters asked. She was furious, said I was choosing the old lady over my own sister. Laura's voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly. I told her it wasn't about choosing sides, it was about basic respect. That must have been difficult, I said, genuinely impressed by her courage. It was. Laura met my eyes directly. But it was also right. The things she says about you, they're not okay. And I don't want to be the kind of person who laughs at those jokes anymore. Kevin reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, honey. 1 month after our first cooking lesson, I received an unexpected invitation from Laura. She called one evening, sounding nervous but determined. Deborah, I was wondering if you'd be available this Saturday. Not for cooking this time, but, well, I thought maybe we could visit the botanical garden. Elizabeth mentioned you two went there, and it sounds lovely. I'd enjoy that very much, Laura. Great. And after maybe lunch? There's a cafe nearby that's supposed to be good. That sounds perfect. Our garden visit was surprisingly enjoyable. Without the structure of a cooking lesson to focus on, I had worried conversation might be strained. Instead, we found common ground in our appreciation of beauty, moving from exhibit to exhibit, commenting on particularly striking plants and arrangements. In the Japanese garden section, Laura paused beside a koi pond, watching the colorful fish swim lazy circles in the clear water. My mother loved gardens, she said suddenly. She had the most amazing rose bushes, heritage varieties in every color. When she got sick, they were one of her biggest worries. Who would take care of her roses? She smiled sadly. Not me. I kill houseplants within a week. Your father must have tended them after she passed? He tried. Hired gardeners, too, but they never looked the same. She trailed her fingers just above the water surface, watching the fish dart toward then away from her shadow. I think gardens need love, not just expertise. I believe you're right about that. Laura straightened, a determined expression crossing her face. I've been thinking about planting a small garden in our backyard. Nothing elaborate, maybe some herbs and flowers to start. Would you be willing to help me? Give me some advice? The request touched me deeply. This wasn't about learning a recipe to please Kevin. This was something personal, something that connected to Laura's memories of her mother. I'd be honored to help, Laura. That afternoon, as we shared lunch at the garden cafe, our conversation turned to broader topics. Laura's work in marketing, my former career as a librarian, books we'd enjoyed, places we hope to visit someday. For the first time, we were talking as two women with lives and interests beyond our connection to Kevin. I never knew you worked in special collections, Laura said, genuinely interested. That must have been fascinating. It was. I specialized in rare books and manuscripts, items that needed careful handling and cataloging. It was meticulous work, but so rewarding. Do you miss it? Sometimes, but I found other ways to use those skills. I volunteer at the Historical Society, helping to digitize their archives. Laura nodded, absorbing this new information about me. You know, there's an exhibit at the university library right now, illuminated manuscripts from medieval Europe. Kevin mentioned you might be interested, but we never followed up. Would you like to go sometime? The three of us, maybe? The fact that she remembered this detail, something Kevin had mentioned in passing, and took the initiative to suggest an outing spoke volumes about her changing perspective. "I'd love that, Laura. Thank you for thinking of it." As spring turned to summer, our relationship continued to evolve in small but significant ways. The weekly cooking lessons became an established tradition. Laura and I developed a genuine rapport in the kitchen, laughing over mistakes, celebrating successes, sharing stories that had nothing to do with recipes. Kevin noticed the change, commenting on it during one of our family therapy sessions. "It's like living in an alternate universe," he marveled. "6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined you two spending time together voluntarily." "We still have our moments," Laura admitted, "but they're less frequent now. The difference," Dr. Winters observed, "is that you've both learned to see each other as complete human beings, not just as roles or obstacles." That was it exactly. Laura was no longer just Kevin's wife or the woman who took my son away. She was Laura, flawed, complex, struggling, but trying. And to her, I was no longer just Kevin's mother or free household help. I was Deborah, a woman with my own history, interests, and boundaries. The ultimate test of our new relationship came in July, when Laura discovered she was pregnant. She and Kevin shared the news with me over dinner at their home, both of them nervous but excited. "That's wonderful news," I said sincerely, hugging them both. "I'm so happy for you." "We wanted to tell you first," Kevin explained, "before anyone else knew." Laura bit her lip, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable. "There's something else we wanted to ask you, Deborah." "Of course. Anything." Laura and Kevin exchanged glances before she continued. "We want you to be involved with this baby, as much as you want to be, but we don't want to make assumptions or take advantage." "What Laura's trying to say," Kevin clarified, "is that we don't want to repeat our past mistakes. We don't want to assume you'll be free childcare whenever we need it. We want you to be a grandmother who gets to enjoy your grandchild, not a babysitter who gets used up." I was deeply moved by their awareness, by this tangible evidence that they had truly heard and understood my concerns. "Thank you for that consideration. It means more than you know." "So," Laura asked tentatively, "how involved would you like to be?" "It's completely up to you." I smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I would love to be an active grandmother, to spend time with my grandchild, to share stories and traditions, to help when you need me. But I also want to maintain my own life and activities, and I appreciate that you're giving me the space to choose." Laura returned the smile, relief evident in her expression. "That sounds perfect. We want you to be part of this child's life because you're you, not because of what you can do for us." "We've learned our lesson," Kevin added solemnly. "Family is about relationships, not transactions." As I drove home that night, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The painful episode of the wedding had ultimately led to something valuable, a more honest, balanced relationship with my son and daughter-in-law. We weren't perfect, and we still had moments of tension or misunderstanding, but we had built a foundation of respect that allowed us to work through those moments instead of letting resentment build. Laura and I would probably never have the effortless closeness some mothers and daughters-in-law enjoyed. We were too different in temperament and experience for that, but we had found something perhaps more valuable, a genuine mutual respect based on seeing and accepting each other as we truly were, flaws and all. The old saying proved true once again. Sometimes things have to break before they can be rebuilt, stronger than before. 1 year after the wedding disaster, Laura and Kevin invited me to dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. Elizabeth was staying with a friend, so it would be just the three of us, a rare occurrence that piqued my curiosity. When I arrived, I found them already seated, Laura's baby bump now prominently visible beneath a flattering maternity dress. They both stood to greet me, Kevin pulling out my chair with unusual formality. "What's the special occasion?" I asked, noting the champagne for Kevin and sparkling cider for Laura and me, already on the table. "We have something to celebrate," Kevin said, his expression a mixture of pride and nervousness. "Two things, actually," Laura added, placing a wrapped gift box on the table. "First, this is for you." Intrigued, I unwrapped the package to find a beautiful leather-bound book. Opening it, I discovered it was filled with recipe cards, some in my handwriting, some in Laura's, some in what appeared to be very old script I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I asked, carefully turning the pages. "It's a family cookbook," Laura explained. "I found my mother's recipe box in my father's attic last month. These are her recipes, alongside the ones you've been teaching me. I thought maybe we could add to it together, for the baby." The thoughtfulness of the gift brought tears to my eyes. This wasn't just a collection of cooking instructions. It was a bridge between families, between generations, a recognition that both Laura's mother and I had valuable traditions to pass down. "It's beautiful, Laura. Thank you." "There's more," Kevin said, refilling our glasses. "We have an announcement." Laura placed her hands protectively over her stomach. "We found out yesterday that we're having a girl." "How wonderful!" I exclaimed. "Elizabeth must be thrilled to be getting a sister." "She is," Kevin confirmed. "But that's not the announcement. We've decided on a name." Laura reached for my hand across the table. "If it's okay with you, we'd like to name her Deborah Marianne Miller, after both her grandmothers." I couldn't speak for a moment, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely," Laura said firmly. "This past year has taught me so much about family, about respect, about the importance of honoring the women who came before us. I want our daughter to carry both those legacies." "I would be deeply honored," I managed finally. "Thank you." Kevin raised his glass. "To family, not perfect, but perfectly ours." We clinked glasses, this small celebration feeling more genuine than the elaborate wedding reception a year earlier. There was no pretense here, no performance. Just three people who had learned, sometimes painfully, to see and respect each other as they truly were. After dinner, as we waited for the valet to bring our cars, Laura mentioned casually, "By the way, Jennifer's getting divorced again." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though Laura didn't sound particularly distressed. "Don't be. Rick's her third husband in 10 years. It was never going to last." Laura shrugged. "She called to complain that he doesn't put her first anymore. I told her relationships don't work that way. They require mutual respect, not constant catering to one person's demands." "And how did she take that advice?" Kevin asked, raising an eyebrow. "About as well as you'd expect. She accused me of turning into an old married lady with no fun left in me." Laura smiled ruefully. "Maybe she's right, but I'd rather be an old married lady with a stable family than constantly searching for someone to fulfill my every whim." As my car arrived first, Laura surprised me with a warm hug. "Thank you, Deborah," she whispered, "for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." "That's what family does," I replied simply. "We hold each other accountable, but we don't give up." Driving home, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past year. From the humiliation of overhearing myself described as free labor to being honored with a grandchild named after me, it had been a path of painful growth for all of us. The spa trip that had seemed so radical, so out of character for my usual accommodating self, had proven to be the most loving action I could have taken, not just for myself, but for Kevin and Laura, too. By refusing to enable their disrespect, I had forced them to confront patterns that would have poisoned our family for years to come. 2 weeks later, I hosted a small gathering at my home, a combination baby shower and book launch. Yes, Book launch. At Patricia's urging, I had compiled my family recipes, household wisdom, and personal reflections into a memoir cookbook titled Serving with Dignity: Recipes for Family and Self-Respect. A small local publisher had expressed interest, particularly in the narrative portions where I described standing up for myself at the wedding and the healing journey that followed. Women over 60 are hungry for stories like this, the editor had said. Stories about reclaiming their worth, setting boundaries, being valued for who they are rather than just what they do for others. The gathering was intimate, just family and close friends. Patricia beaming with pride as she handed out signed copies. Robert Wilson, who had become a good friend over the past year, accompanied by Carol Thompson, now officially his girlfriend. Elizabeth, proudly showing everyone the acknowledgement page where her name appeared. Kevin and Laura, the latter now 8 months pregnant, moving with the careful grace of an expectant mother. As I signed books and accepted congratulations, I caught sight of Laura across the room. She was standing by the buffet table, which she and I had prepared together, one hand on her belly, the other holding my book open to the dedication page. For Gregory, who taught me the value of dignity. For Kevin, who learned it the hard way. For Laura, who found the courage to grow. And for Elizabeth, who saw the truth with a child's clear eyes. May we all remember that love without respect is like a house without foundation. It cannot stand the test of time. Laura looked up, meeting my eyes across the room. She smiled, not the perfect, practiced smile she had worn when we first met, but something more genuine, more human. I smiled back, acknowledging the distance we had traveled together. Later, as guests began to leave, Laura approached me in a quiet moment. "Your book is beautiful, Deborah. You've captured something important, something I'm still learning." "We're all still learning," I assured her. "That's what makes life interesting." "I wanted to ask you something," she said, her expression serious. "Would you be willing to be in the delivery room when the baby comes? Not just in the waiting room, but actually with us? Kevin and I both want you there." The invitation touched me deeply, perhaps more than any other gesture could have. This wasn't about practical help or obligation. This was about family, about trust, about belonging. "I would be honored, Laura, truly honored." As I looked around my living room, at my son who had learned to stand up for what was right, at my daughter-in-law who had found the courage to confront her fears, at my granddaughter who had spoken truth when adults were afraid to, I felt a profound sense of peace. At 73 years old, I had finally learned that true dignity wasn't about never being disrespected. It was about having the courage to respond to disrespect with clarity and strength, rather than accommodation and resentment. It was about valuing myself enough to expect others to do the same. And in standing up for myself, I had ultimately given my family the greatest gift of all, the chance to become better versions of themselves. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is to refuse to accept their worst behavior. In demanding respect, I had opened the door to authentic love, the kind built on mutual regard rather than use and convenience. It was a lesson worth every difficult moment of the journey. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever had to stand up for your dignity in your family? Comment below with your thoughts and the city you're watching from. 2 more stories you might enjoy from our channel. My daughter stole my lottery winnings. I got revenge at her wedding. They laughed when I wore my old dress to the reunion. Then they saw who picked me up.